Yay.
Yay.
Okay. First of all, I just wanted to go ahead and say, and Charlene's already taken over.
No, I am not. You go ahead and talk. I'm just putting this up because it's pleasant.
Yeah, no worries. Welcome to our February webinar. Charlene is going to be our host for tonight. She's going to be presenting, and I will be facilitating. In case you don't know me, I am Jennifer Morrison, and I am the interim vice president of our LID 612, Literacy in the Discipline 612 organization. And Charlene is our illustrious treasurer. She does amazing jobs with our grants and with our money and all that other important stuff. So, and if you want to just take a second in order to introduce yourselves, make sure everybody knows each other, that would be awesome. So let's start with Wanda, shall we?
Which one?
Sure. I'm a retired science teacher. I taught in Detroit public schools for over 20 years, but very interested in the literacy connection within the discipline.
Well, thank you very much.
So good to have you.
Awesome. Thank you for being here.
And I'm also Wanda Littlejohn. I'm the instructional specialist at Carolina High School, where I work with all teachers on curriculum and instruction and do professional development.
And she's also a science person.
Yes.
Oh, good. Yay.
So, yay.
Wanda Bryant, we did science, and Wanda Littlejohn had a good portion of it in a lesson last month. So if you get on our LID site and can look her up, it was a wonderful webinar in January.
I will do that.
I can drop the link into the chat for you. So
that would be great. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. All right, Charlene, if you want to go ahead and get started.
Okay. So I'm Charlene Aldrich, and I am a retired higher ed teacher, but I stayed in as an adjunct at the College of Charleston to teach the Read to Succeed courses, which are content area reading and writing, assessments in reading, the courses that the legislature is started to require in 2015. And my passion is the content area reading and writing and how you can integrate it together. So Wanda Littlejohn in January, they presented a great science lesson. And my question was, where's the reading? Where are you reading informational text? And so I will do everything I can to bring that to the point tonight, that they can integrate together, and you can make even better lessons when you integrate literary and informational text into your curriculum areas. I want to thank the South Carolina Middle Grades Initiative. They sponsor our webinars, and Wanda Bryant, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it became a part of the Read to Succeed law. It was enacted to kind of help facilitate the information out to the teachers and then thus to get to the students. And so we're very lucky to be funded by them. So I think we've done our introductions. Anything else that anybody wants to add? What I would like you to add is how you have collaborated with teachers. Wanda Bryant, for you in the past, and Wanda Littlejohn, how do you collaborate with teachers currently?
Well, I'll go ahead and start. Some of my discovery, unfortunately, I did not get until after I left the classroom, and that came from interacting with ELA teachers. They have this thing called text sets. And so I became fascinated by using text sets, and you have different levels of reading with the goal to help the students be more proficient, because that was a serious issue in Detroit. And as a science teacher, I was not going to ignore that. I had to help them be successful. So I have a lengthy thread on it on Twitter. I'm still on there at Wanda Bryant if you want to look at that.
Okay, good. Yeah, I do want to connect with you, because part of what I want to show tonight are sources for some really great text sets. And I think if you are still connected in the schools in any way, you're going to walk away with things that you can share.
Great.
So I collaborated today with our biology teachers. We were looking at the South Carolina State end of course test data report. And if you're not familiar with that, it is a document created by a group of educators who kind of analyze the end of course exams, and they put together a report of commonly missed things by students, and they do it in a way that is not a test violation. And so one of the common issues with the biology EOC is that it is a reading test, and you have to learn how to read like a scientist. So we worked together today to talk about strategies on how to get students to analyze data, analyze a scenario, and come up with their claim, evidence, and reasoning. And so that's something that I did just this morning.
That's great. So I feel like we spend too much of our time telling students what they need to know, and they're not tested that way. And so that's why I like to lead them into an informational text to find out some information that generates the conversations in the classroom. But then it's like with every lesson, they are responsible. They need to do the work. I've done the work. Wanda, Little John, you don't need to do so much work, let them do the work, because it's the work that makes your brain nerves stronger and the synapses grow that way. Very good. Jennifer, what about you? I know you've done some collaborating.
Yeah, a lot of the collaborating that I'm doing with teachers right now is instructional, although I do have one person who is serving as both my advisee, my intern, my friend. She's kind of doing
Wow.
she's kind of doing all of those things, and it's an interesting thing to see how those conversations are going on. But yeah, I collaborate with teachers, frequently in order to better classes, in order to determine what things should be happening in classrooms, and really in a large part, since I live in this box so much of my time, to make sure that I'm staying out of the ivory tower.
Right. And out of the silo, the ivory tower, the silo. I enjoy people more when we connect on, in important things, not just coffee. The first thing I want to do is just talk about when Read to Succeed came about. It was all about content area literacy, and it touched a little bit on disciplinary literacy, but these are kind of the definitions that in general I'd like for us to work with. They're not inclusive. We can add or subtract things, but content area literacy is basically taking what we do from reading and applying it to other informational texts. Disciplinary literacy then becomes a higher level, really. I try to teach my in-service teachers that first we have to get the first level, but then we go to strategic knowledge and literacy, content area literacy, and then the peak of the triangle, the pyramid, is the disciplinary literacy, where you really have evolved that you can find the facts on your own, you can write a report, but it really takes higher level thinking to do research and come out with a new product. Is there anything that y'all would like to add to these two definitions that you feel stretches them more vertical or horizontal? Okay, well, good. I don't know that these are the experts all over the world, but I think they have a good covering of what we should remember. I want to present to you the idea of parallel reading, which themes or topics, connecting texts of, see, I can't see this because my people are in the way. Are your people in the way? Wonder if I can move my people.
You
There
should
you
be able
go.
to just grab it and move it someplace else.
Okay, good. So, and I like this picture because it really, we are in our own silos or in our own railroad track, and we have to have the cross ties to connect us to really make learning stick. I've seen schools that require students to read one book in every course, this is an outside reading, every quarter. And these books were assigned based on the discipline's curriculum. And so I've also seen how much stress and anxiety this puts on the students, because there are still the students that are doing everything they can to make an A and everything they can to be a part of their school, the sports, the theater, the dance, the band, and everything. And so I mainly want to suggest another way of thinking about parallel reading so that it can enrich and extend your discipline rather than causing eating disorders and anxieties and migraines, because that's what I saw in these students that are striving to be the best there is. So and I want to make it practical. These are some of the things that I think make for very effective parallel reading. It's not the teacher assigning one book that everybody has to read. It's not necessarily a good works kind of thing. It could be a very contemporary thing that introduces new ideas along the way with what you're teaching. But it's also an opportunity to look at drama or poetry or charts, even different kinds of ways that informational text is presented to stretch your brains and do better on those end of year exams. So one way to connect with other teachers is through themes, and we get a lot of emails through through just blurbs out where they're spam, where they're throwing everything out. But sometimes they're worth looking at, because if it is, for instance, February and it's Black History Month, we can touch on that across the curriculum. What are some of the other themes besides the thematic days or opportunities that you all experience and could build on to connect with other teachers?
I would say environmental justice issues.
I'm sorry, I missed that altogether.
I said environmental justice issues.
Yay. Perfect. Perfect.
I'm cheering because I literally talked about that in my doctorate class last night, and it's all about adolescent literacy. And I was focused on climate justice, environmental justice, and how those intersect with literacy, and how do we do this through multimodal ways. So yay.
Well, and it's a matter of, are the students able to read more than one point of view? Because if they continue to go down and just, we know it's human nature, read what reinforces what we're thinking, we never get that, I don't think, justice. We get our tunnel vision reinforced, and we have to be prepared to read something that makes us uncomfortable. And I think, Jennifer, is that part of what you do? You encourage them to read things that are uncomfortable.
And also to address things in ways that you have to tiptoe sometimes. Remember where I am. I'm in Texas. Guess what's going on in Texas? Yeah, even though they claim, yes. So the money in Texas comes from fossil fuels. Okay. So you've got families, you've got communities that are entirely built on, drilling and petroleum and things like that. So how do you then talk about climate change and the damage of environmental impact when the communities entirely rely on fossil fuels and petroleum? And so that's a huge piece of how do you approach something like that thematically? And one of the things that we've talked about is you approach it where you're teaching a skill. So for me in English, I would teach rhetoric. Okay. How do you make an argument? What kind of argumentation is there? And so I can present to my students an article about climate change or about environmental justice or a documentary piece, and have them analyze it in terms of the rhetoric that is being used for argumentation, while I'm subtly putting in the content that is environmental justice. But our focus is on the skill building. It just happens to be that our content is this, so that if people are asking, well, why is it that you're doing this, or how can you possibly be teaching this when, you know, this is what our community is about? Well, I'm just teaching argumentation.
Mhm. The quiet message. I love it.
Teaching is subversive, said Neil Postman.
Yes. So I want to share, oh, so what are some other themes? That is one good theme that can cross every curriculum area.
I'm still stuck on the justice. I think when you think about justice, and if kids are reading the Diary of Henrietta Lacks and they're studying sickle cell and the justice that was in that, um, I think that would go across curriculum as well as ninth graders. It could be done. You could still work on that skill of rhetoric in the English class, but then talk about scientifically what happened to her cells, that caused her to be sick or caused them to be sickle. I mean, it's justice is a hot topic. And I think, especially in a high school, you can intertwine that theme into everything.
And it was my students in a it was a senior class at the college, and it was their semester right before they were going to student teach. They introduced me to that whole story. So I've been in this silo that did not know. Now, since I've seen the movie, you know, and I've read more about it, but you know, the sharing back and forth of information is critical to getting to social justice. I would not have known. Well, I want to stop. I'm going to stop sharing this screen so I can get to a site that is like one of my favorites for, now share screen. All right, I'm experimenting. I should be able to share my screen, and I didn't get to it yet. Hold on just a minute. Jennifer, got any help? Because I'm trying to share a website.
So share your screen.
Okay, let me get out of this. That's, I think, what is
Yeah, you need to get out
Zoom.
of, close out your PowerPoint from the sharing and then go to.
Okay, it's minimized.
Okay, so now you should be able to open up the website,
Okay,
share screen.
go back to you. Come on. I have you little exit minimize video. There we go. Okay, thank you. So one of my favorites is Common Lit, and I think they don't go overboard, but they touch on everything thematically. And these are so many of the themes that our middle and high school students are struggling with. It's not always just social justice. Some of them may still be in a middle school or even a fifth or fourth grade mentality where they can't find their own identity yet. And how can you deal with social injustice if you haven't found your compass yet, or your own identity? And what I like is that when you go to Common Lit and it brings up these themes, it tells you how many texts are there. And what I found is that you can choose like a readability level, and so you can differentiate in your classroom if you choose to. Many experts say that you shouldn't do that. You should use the more complex text to teach them how to approach reading a complex text. So I'm just going to scroll through these different themes. They just cover the gamut of what I'm going to say children, what our students need to maneuver in this crazy world we live in. And some of them are unique, but definitely as we face the struggles in the classrooms, there are themes that need to be covered as a group, either in reaction to an event or being proactive for something else that could be going on. So Common Lit, and it's easily found, is like www Common Lit, but you can also always, let's see, I am going to now, I want to get back to my PowerPoint. There it is. Okay. Slideshow. I like them big from the comment. Okay. So Common Lit, that's my favorite for themes. And this was I just picked off a screenshot, but there's the URL if you want to jot that down. You can pick the grade level. Down further is the Lexile band, just easily researched. I also like that sellers will compile lists of things, lists of books. Public libraries will approach their library holdings thematically also. We know how easy a Google search is, but I think it's important for us to sort of vet where we send our students, so that they don't go down a rabbit hole. So then we get to topics. What are some of the topics in science? Like we talked about Henrietta Lacks, that definitely can go into a history, a culture lesson, a sociology lesson. It can go into a math lesson very easily. Any kind of science or genetics. What are some other topics, Wanda Bryant, that you've taught in science that might connect across the curriculum?
Well, we had an issue with lead in the water in Detroit public schools, and
Right.
most of us are probably familiar with the Flint water crisis, which was local. And current events obviously would be the COVID-19 pandemic that would go across all disciplines.
Absolutely. Think of the charts and things that they could make them create in math to show those visually, the statistics in the water count. And I just imagine big.
Well, and it comes back to a justice piece again, because why is it happening in those particular communities? 'Cause
Absolutely.
you can parallel that with Jackson, Mississippi, and why is it that those are the communities that are being impacted?
Right.
And
Yes.
now even what's going on in, what's that, Palestine, Ohio, with the train
Oh,
crash.
big chemical,
Yes.
the chemical cloud.
Yes.
Right.
That's
Right.
terrible.
Yeah. Well, I have a favorite site for topics also, and I'm just checking to be sure it's going to come up next. I think it is. Let's see if I can get this right this time. I like ReadWorks for topics. They are very good about bringing in topics like that. They also have something called an article a day that you can push out to your students so that they have an article every day. You can tell them, you can add an activity also, if you think that it needs to be more than just reading for understanding and enjoyment. But you can also search by science or social studies or arts. They also have thematic themes like social and emotional learning, holidays, events. You can pick what kind of genre you want to get. And I just highly encourage a little bit of everything. But that is a very good site for our topics that we teach. Let me check my notes just a minute. Yes. A lot of these things can be pushed out through an email also, or through whatever LMS you're using. Is just post the article a day. It might be fun reading, it might not be fun reading, but I really think that once the students start reading them and saying, this isn't such a bad thing, that they will enjoy what they're reading and look forward to the next day. Here it comes. And so there's the URL for ReadWorks. Wanda Bryan, are these some things that you were familiar with from your text sets?
Yes, we had ReadWorks, and we also had Newsella.
Oh, okay, good. And what I found is ReadWorks seems to be always free, but News ELA, they've gotten a paid subscription kind of thing, so you can integrate it into your LMS and things. And I don't really see the need for that. If this is parallel reading, just skirting our curriculum, then we don't need to go in for the paid subscriptions. We just want the articles and the text sets. So this, what I like about Newsela is what you called it. I call it News ELA. I like that they come up with a current event for every day, and they are very active in, it may be 24 hours, it may be 48 hours, but they are on these current events that are really near and dear to people's hearts, and more than just a TikTok. My grandson told me something about the news, and I said, well, where do you get your news? And he said, oh, I get all my news from TikTok. And I just cringed. I cringed. I'm going to refresh just to see if they've got something new today. And this, am I sharing my screen? Probably not. Share screen. There we go. This can be sent to an email. Their news a day can be sent to your emails, and I get it every day. But as I looked to give y'all information, I couldn't find where to sign up for it anymore. So I'm scared to even let mine go because I don't know how to sign up for it again. Wanda, do you know how to sign up for this news a day?
Not anymore. No.
Okay. I just let them come in because I have grandchildren that I think that should find things interesting. Wanda Littlejohn, are any of these new to you?
ReadWorks is, but our district has a subscription to News ELA, so
Oh,
I'm
good.
familiar with that, and Common Lit.
Oh, good. Do you feed some of those through to your students?
Yes, our English teachers use both News ELA and Common Lit all the time. I haven't
Oh,
heard about ReadWorks, but I will definitely put that
good,
out there.
good, good. And again, News ELA is something that's easily searched, you know, content. I pulled off some that I like. There was one for Halloween a couple of years ago, and I just have to share this because it was phenomenal. I don't know if it's in here. I meant to keep it up. It was about Halloween and how much money is spent in the United States on Halloween for costumes or parties or decorations or candy. And I wanted my students to get this factoid out of it. It said 95% of Americans buy candy for Halloween. About 60% give out candy for Halloween. I see you laughing, Wanda Littlejohn. We know where the rest of that candy went, don't we? That was I almost had to explain it, and I felt really bad that I had to explain it because I just thought the irony of it was just a pleasure. Okay, I'm going to see if I can get back to my PowerPoint so I can remember what comes next. Oh, share screen first. So I've never done a real webinar before, so I'm experimenting, and I appreciate y'all being my guinea pigs. It's going much better than I expected, so thank you. Okay, I don't think we have to jump back and forth anymore. Let's see what's next. I found this in just the last month or so. It was a book that came across, and I hope that we all know about micro or about mentor texts, but this is actually a book of blurbs they've taken. And I've always wondered why, if Shakespeare is so great, we could teach an act of Shakespeare without forcing people to read the whole Romeo Juliet and just get the spark notes. But if we could concentrate on just portions of great books, then I think we could cover a whole lot more great books and also expose our students to many different kinds of writing styles. And so these mentor texts are great for reading different kinds of books, but also for writing cause and effect, sequence, whatever kind of an argument, Jennifer, you can go into this book and pull out the short passage to share and then assign students to mirror it as they do a reading assignment and writing assignment. Jennifer, have you seen this book before?
I have not. I know Penny Kittle's work.
Mhm.
and Matt De La Pena, but actually it reminds me a lot. There was a text that we used that helped with writing sentences, and they did the same thing where they would pull passages from great pieces of writing and then show how the sentences were constructed in order to
Mhm.
help you to be able to write that. So it's along the same lines. And I can't remember off the top of my head what the name of the book was, but it's same idea.
Great. Well, what I also have found is, I mean, I believe that in all of these text pairing and parallel reading that there should be some kind of follow-up. And a lot of what I do when I teach my in-service teachers is ask them to write a 1-paragraph summary and a 1-paragraph takeaway. Like, so, and I found that they struggle, and the college students that I had struggle the most with a concise summary. My seniors that I had one semester, they couldn't write a summary. They brought back for their summary a 5-page paper with references to it. And that's not what we should want for a summary. We want, you know, it's like I tell them, close your book, put it away, and now tell me what you remember. And you should be able to get the main points, the major details, and then go right into what are you going to do with it. And that's all I need to have evidence that you read and you processed. Do you do summary writing, Wanda Littlejohn, in your biology courses?
A little bit. When they do the claim evidence and reasoning,
That's right.
that reasoning is that kind of summarizing
Mhm.
of the activity.
Do you find that they would rather copy and paste and give you some of the words from, right? And that's why I just like to encourage, no, put all your resources away and now brainstorm on a piece of paper, not in technology. I'm still such a firm believer of paper and pencil. Brainstorm everything you remember. And then you really get a sense of what they came away with, what was important to them, and how they might find that it connects to the experiment that you're going to do next. I'm going to encourage more summary writing. Practicality. Any of these parallel readings and writings that I've talked about hit standards serendipitously. It's not that you're asking your students to do something that is a special lesson that you like, but we are all responsible for the writing and communicating your thoughts to others. And I like parallel reading because you can share, you can actually collaborate with an ELA teacher so that if you want a formal research report at the end, you can grade it for content and your ELA teacher can grade it for I call it mechanics, sentence structure, grammar, punctuation, spelling. And because as a content area teacher, I've seen teachers focus on the content, and as long as they can understand the content of the writing, they overlook any mistakes on the way to it. And so it makes it nice to be able to turn it back to the ELA teacher. It takes up one of her assignments, her writing assignments, especially if your students are required to write, like in college in English composition, they're required to write 10,000 words over the semester. Well, if they can write what they've understood in history and get in part of their 10,000 words, I think that's all the better. But this is the idea of shared responsibility for reading and writing assignments. I found, I've not seen this one before, but it's always like, how do we grow our book libraries? And this is a foundation that is only for growing classroom libraries. The application process is quite detailed, but I felt like everybody that got through the process of the application will get funded. So if you are looking for ways to fund more books in your classrooms, or and it was specifically for classroom libraries. So I thought this was a good venture to look into. I also know that Donors Choose is great. So much so in Charleston that Stephen Colbert funded every single project in South Carolina one year. And so, you know, that feels kind of good. But if you don't go and ask, you never get funded. And this is my mantra. I know that it's true. I don't have data to support it. But I know if our students are actively engaged in independent reading on their own, it's so important. I know that we use choral readings, we use guided readings, we use paired readings, but I also know that, like, can just put on the audio and they don't have to do the processing. When you have to process the words without audio, you are really reading and processing. It becomes a passive activity when we allow them just to listen to the books that we really want them to read. I just want to remind you of our websites, and this will be up there, but there's also many blogs that are so important to what's going on in the classroom right now. And Wanda Littlejohn's, and was it Anna Stewart, right? She helped you. Their webinar about science, Wanda Bryant, is on there, and you would really, I was just like, oh, this is great, this is great, this is great. I'm so glad they do things like that. And then just my references for those two definitions. And that's what I've got. Questions, Jennifer? Anything that we can add to make it bigger? Or hi, Tracy Butler. I'm glad that you joined us.
I was going to say we can just ask Tracy to introduce herself.
Hello.
Oh, hey, Tracy. Who are you and when did you get to come in? I hope you didn't miss some of the good stuff.
I was sorry, I was about 15 minutes late.
Okay.
The good thing is it's recorded and you can go back and watch what you missed.
Good.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Tracy, tell us about you.
I'm a professor. I teach literacy and English as a second language, strategies, skills, culture, all of those kind of things to teachers.
Oh, great. And so how do you encourage your teachers in ESL to collaborate across the curriculum?
Well, it depends on the class. So some of them have like group projects or partner projects that they work on together. Discussion post, so they have to respond to each other. Depending on what they post, you know, I give them a prompt and then they respond to it, and they actually seem to learn a lot from each other just doing the discussion posts.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems to be helpful.
Good.
I probably could do a better job across the content areas, but like each class is you know, kind of specific, like if we're just doing literacy or we're just doing assessment or something like that.
Right. Well, I think that's what teachers like about teaching, is that they get a brand new start at the first of the year or at the semester break when you come back refreshed after a few weeks off. It's like, okay, yeah, brand new start. I know I can do things better. I always wanted, teachers are just like that. They always want to do things better and are always going to be on the lookout for new ways to do things. So I hope you got in time to hear some of my resources, and that maybe those are some that you could use with expose your teachers to, so that they can get more reading out. Many of those articles will come in Spanish, and they can, you know, they can look at it back and forth, but I don't know that there's any other languages that they translate their articles into.
Well, that would be good. We have a pretty large population here, Greenville, Spartanburg area.
Oh, good.
Of Spanish speakers, I mean.
Right.
Do you guys know of any Ukrainian or Russian? Because we're getting a larger population of those students.
Gosh. I honestly don't. And they are coming in with no English at all.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yes. Very limited. Yeah.
Well, what my only advice is that we think about how we learned to even speak in our native tongue is it started at birth, and we listened and listened and listened until we started babbling, you know, and I don't know how that applies to ESL, but it just seems like when you're totally immersed, like they are, they will have a much better time listening and listening and then trying out their new words. What do you think?
I mean, it can help, like their social language is usually a lot faster, you know, because it's easier. There's not the vocabulary that they have to that they're required to know for content. But sometimes I think you need to start with the phonics, like learning the sounds and the different, because some sounds don't exist in other languages and that exist here in English, and so that's really important to teach them, because that, you know, as a good base.
I came upon a student in one of my classes at where I retired, and I thought she was from the Ukraine, but she said that the language that they got from birth at home was different from the language that they got when they got to school, and was different from the language that they read in the reading materials that they had.
Oh, wow.
And it may have been Romania, but one of those countries. I thought it's amazing that she even had English then as well as she had, if she had done that many translations.
Well, usually in Europe, they're learning like 3 or 4 languages at a time, you know, where here we don't even have one language or 2 languages a lot of times.
Well, that's true. That's true. I didn't mean to get us sidetracked, but I found that very interesting, Tracy. I appreciate you sharing with us.
Cognates too. I would just put that in there out there too.
Yeah.
You know, words that look the same or similar in English and in the other language.
Right. Absolutely. Jennifer, what kinds of things did you post in the chat? Because I was not able to see the chat while I was sharing my screen.
I was dropping in all of the websites that you were talking about. I dropped in our Lid 612 website so that people can find the blogs. Wanda dropped in scienceintheclassroom.org.
Cool.
I did figure out it was Kilgallen was the book that we used to use, and it was on sentence composing. So I dropped the citation for that in there. And then the last thing that I have included is a link to our Google Forms, so that if everybody can take a couple of minutes and just give us their review, that would be awesome. That we appreciate feedback that we can get from everybody, because we then use that for future webinars and for building out other things that people may find interesting or useful. So if you wouldn't mind taking a minute in order to fill that out before you leave tonight, that would be fantastic. Did anybody else have questions for Charlene, or is there anything else that we could address for you? All right, fantastic. I'm going to go ahead.
So I appreciate y'all dropping in. Jennifer and I believe that, and the foundation of LID is that we all have a lot to learn from each other. No one holds the magic jelly bean that has all the answers. And I've learned from you guys. I hope y'all have learned from what we've had to share with you. And thank you for your time.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And we'll see you later. Take care.
See you. Bye. It's nice to meet you.